Laura came into our studio with some problems. She said her living room is small. She needs help with her window treatments and the lighting. Do you have suggestions for the blank wall space? And we said, hey, Shai and Karen, let's help her out. So this is her place, and this is where she'd like us to consider what she might be able to do a bit differently. Shai, you've got ideas.
Yeah, so let's pull up, we did a rendering for her, so we really went all out this time. The thing about the space is a couple things. So we're going to talk about window treatments and lighting, of course, that's what you asked, but never ask a designer a question if you don't want an answer you don't want to hear. Right. So we went into everything, actually. In terms of lighting, if we pull up the picture, you see that we really need to talk about layers in lighting. Yeah. We have a ceiling lamp, a floor lamp, and we also have this great sconce. So, you know, they all have that same kind of mid-century feel, the ceiling, the sconce, and the floor, and they all work together, but it's the different layers in lighting. So if you're at home and you're having a party, you might want to have the ceiling lamp on. If you're at home just, you know, with your special someone and you want to have more mood lighting, it's great to have the sconces on. So really important. In terms of...
Don't forget those dimmers.
Don't forget those
dimmers. Layered lighting is perfect for aging.
Oh, yes.
Right? Your light, you want to be able to control your light.
You don't want light over top of you either.
You don't walk around with one of those big floodlights. It just makes you look amazing. In terms of the window treatment, so it's a really contemporary space, and I got the feel from the furniture that you have now existing is that you're kind of more of a modern aesthetic. So what we wanted to see was actually roller shades in the windows, which are super easy, inexpensive, they look great, they don't pull away from anything. And what we've also done, if you've noticed, now we're going to get into things that you didn't ask about, is we've taken away the mantle that you have. So if we pull back to the first picture again where we can see your fireplace, the mantle was quite traditional. It had a traditional feel to it. It was a little bit small for the space. So rather than that, let's go back to the rendering again. We did a full-on floor-to-ceiling stone detail. But if you look at the stone detail that I did here, I didn't want to go crazy with it. It's not real stone. This is actually porcelain. So this is great. It's great for fireplaces. It looks fantastic. It has that beautiful veining in it, and it looks really mid-century. Oops. Now, if we look at the furniture also that we've added into the space, it's a lot cleaner lines. It's a lot more contemporary, which gets into scale and proportion. Scale and proportion is really important when you're designing a space. So the furniture's smaller, it feels better in the space. It's not quite as big and oversized as the pieces that you've chosen. Right. So think about scale and proportion.
Okay, so we're going to let Karen continue the discussion because you brought in some boards as well.
I did. Well, you know what's great about today's show? So many amazing lessons. So I feel like, you know, you're going to turn off the TV today and you've already done something so amazing for yourself because you've already learned something. So skip that workout today, everybody. Honestly, you've done enough. You've done enough for yourself today. We're so good. Yeah, that's right.
Come pick up this piece. This is actually,
So what I'm going to talk about is in design, we have principles of design. They're kind of like our guidelines.
Right.
And then we also have our toolbox. In our toolbox, we have things like color and texture and shape. So one of the easiest ways to get unity or harmony in your space is to unify it with something like color. So for example, you might fall in love with this fabric here, and maybe this is your window treatment. It's beautiful. It has lots of color. So one of the reasons I love starting with something like this is because it has so much color. It's big scale, so it's really wonderful for a window treatment. But then as you think about designing for the rest of your condo or the rest of your home or the rest of your main floor, consider picking out a few fabrics that you like for the rest of the space, because what we're trying to achieve as you walk through the front door of a home or a condo and you walk through the rest of the space, each room flows into the next room. And that's harder than it seems. And you know why? Because we're standing in our foyer, or we're standing in our front hall, or walking through our hall. We stand in our hall, we can see our kitchen. We can see our family room. We can see the powder room, maybe the laundry room. And then you go up the stairs in that same hallway, and now you can see the bedroom. So if you don't have something that unifies it, if you kind of do a living room, and then you do your dining room, and then you do everything piecemeal, and then you go back to the hall, you're like, oh my gosh, what color can I paint my hall? And you know what happened? Remember when everybody used to use cloud white, which is a very yellow-based white? And then we all went to gray tones. So maybe the upstairs is still yellow-based, and maybe now downstairs you're doing gray-based, and now you have to do that hall that marries the two, and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So it's great to think through these things before you do anything. So you don't have to do it all at once. You can do one room at a time for sure, but the important thing is to plan so something carries through for the entire space.
Lovely.
And it could be very simple like this, or you can go crazy like this. But, you know, so the nice thing about this is that you can see you might have started with this fabric, or you might have started with this fabric and all the wonderful color, but then you pull these other colors through the space.
Right.
So one of the things that's funny is I'm sure there's a lot of people at home who have great taste and they've done amazing spaces of their own, and now their friends come over and say, oh my gosh, Shai, you have done such a great space. Well, Shai is a professional. We can't use it. Susie in the audience. You've done such a great space at home. Can you do it for me at my house? And I remember before I went to design school, people used to ask me that. And I used to think, oh my gosh, I know I can do my taste, but I'm not sure if I can do your taste.
Yes.
So it was actually kind of daunting because, you know, I can certainly replicate what I liked. So if you understand the principles of design, well, I'm kind of teaching you all the inside scoop of how you can. And the nice thing about that is that's what we learn in design school. And once you learn things like unity and harmony, or scale and proportion, or the ways to marry things, you have all the secrets. So now when you walk into somebody's space, it might not even be your taste. You can say, you know, that sofa's really small and that chair is really big. And you know what I call that? My little thing that I call it? What do you call I always go, that's a Papa Bear and that's a baby bear. You know, it's like one's really big and one's really small.
So it's so technical, your term for that.
Yes, it's very technical. Feel free to use it. And well, and you know what? And if you can't look at your space anymore, like how many of us have those spaces and we just walk in, we can't even see them anymore because it's just been that way for so long. Take a picture of your space, print it out. It's amazing how different things look when it's actually in photographic form. You see things you didn't see before.
You know, one of the interesting terms that I like to give people to take with them when they're out buying things is always remember the phrase cross-pollination. I call it cross-pollination, basically meaning you should have something that if this color is pollinating one bedroom, it should pollinate another room that I can see from that vantage point. Cross-pollination, just think about that when you're buying stuff for an open space.
Absolutely, I call it color story.
There you go.
Yeah, same idea. It's the idea that something unifies. So I have 3 pictures I brought because now that you're pros, we're all pros. We're going to look at 3 pictures and what do you see that unifies the space? So here's the kitchen. And one of them is very obvious. Here's the dining area and that little eating nook in the same area. And this is the living room just off that kitchen. So what do we see that might unify that space?
The coloring.
The color story.
Yeah, color story.
Am I supposed to say it? Okay.
You can say it.
You're the professional. You're supposed to give it away.
Point for you and point for you.
Yes, it's the color story.
So the thing that we saw is that beautiful navy color, and it was replicated in the color of the island, in the backsplash behind the sink, in the backsplash behind the stove, in the chairs that we had around the kitchen table, and also in the living room. One of the things that might have been hard to see is that the pendant over the island was copper. And then the light over the kitchen table was that wicker. And then all the lighting in the living room was also very warm metals. So the other thing that may be harder to spot, but you'd feel it if you were in the space, was that warm metals.
Beautiful.
Really nice. Okay, good lesson. I can be a designer now, not really.